Welcome to the Daily Departure from Skift, your essential daily briefing on the business of travel. One story, one powerful insight, every weekday straight from the Skift newsroom.
Junk fees, airport security, no tax on tips, 7 travel bills in Congress. We're tracking. Travel and tourism isn't at the top of Congress' agenda, which this month is dominated by debate over the President Donald Trump-backed Big Beautiful Tax and Spending Bill. But that doesn't mean that lawmakers aren't attempting to make laws that would directly affect the hotel, lodging, air travel, and cruise industries. Here are 7 such federal bills to watch heading into the summer. 1. Hotel Fees Transparency Act of 2025. Introduced by Representative Young Kim, Republican of California, this bipartisan bill targets unfair and deceptive advertising of prices for hotel rooms and other places of short-term lodging. Bill co-sponsors include Representatives Kathy Castor, Democrat of Florida, Russell Fry, Republican of South Carolina, Kevin Mullen, Democrat of California, Craig Goldman, Republican of Texas, Eugene Vindman, Democrat of Virginia, and Andre Carson, Democrat of Indiana. The bill mandates that hotels and short-term rental providers must display the total services price if a price is displayed in any advertisement, marketing, or price list wherever the covered services are displayed, advertised, marketed, or offered for sale. Disclose the total services price at the time the covered services are first displayed to an individual and any time thereafter throughout the covered services purchasing process. Disclose before a final purchase any tax, fee, or assessment imposed by any government entity, quasi-government entity, or government-created special district or program on the sale of covered services. The bill passed the U.S. House on a voice vote in April. The U.S. Senate is now considering the measure. There, Senator Amy Klobuchar, Democrat of Minnesota, has introduced a Senate version of the Hotel Fees and Transparency Act of 2025, which is co-sponsored by Senators Jerry Moran, Republican of Kansas, Catherine Cortez Masto, Democrat of Nevada, and Shelley Moore Capito, Republican of West Virginia. Hard-working families across the country are burdened by last-minute hidden fees when planning a trip, which is why the Hotel Fees Transparency Act passed with wide bipartisan support, Kim told Skift in an email. Earlier this year, the Federal Trade Commission instituted a related rule requiring enhanced pricing transparency. The congressional bills would codify the rules and make portions of them permanent. 2. No Tax on Tips Act. Another bipartisan bill, the No Tax on Tips Act, aims to establish a new income tax deduction of up to $25,000 for tips, as well as expand business tax credits for the portion of payroll taxes an employer pays on certain tips. Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, introduced the bill, and its 8 co-sponsors include 6 Republicans and the 2 Democratic senators from Nevada, Senators Jack Rosen and Cortez Masto. In advocating for the bill on the Senate floor last month, Cruz explained that the no tax on tips idea sprung from a conversation Trump had last year with a hotel waitress in Las Vegas. As Cruz told the story, and he said he pulled out a pad of paper and he just wrote on the pad of paper, "No tax on tips." The bill unanimously passed the U.S. Senate on May 20th and is now pending in the U.S. House, where Representative Vern Buchanan, Republican of Florida, has introduced a companion bill that's garnered 20 co-sponsors, mostly Republicans, but a couple of Democrats as well. At present, the bill is incorporated into the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. If it becomes law, the No Tax on Tips Act stands to increase the net pay of hundreds of thousands of hotel employees and airport workers, from housekeepers to bartenders to red caps. American Hotel and Lodging Association. President and CEO Rosanna Maeda praised the bill as an important measure. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Democrat of New York, said the bill will be a boon for working Americans of all sorts. 3. Stop Disaster Price Gouging Act. Sponsored by Representative Laura Friedman and co-sponsored by Representative Brad Sherman, both Democrats of California, the bill seeks to stop price gouging of all sorts in the days following a presidential disaster declaration. The bill includes a provision for hotel lodging and residential rental properties, one which would effectively cap price increases at 50% for 30 days after a disaster declaration. There are exceptions, such as increased lodging prices that are attributable to seasonable adjustments that are regularly scheduled. Introduced in March, the bill now sits before the House Committee on Energy and Commerce and has not yet received a hearing. 4. Traveler Privacy Protection Act of 2025. The bipartisan bill, introduced in May by Senator Jeff Merkley, Democrat of Oregon, seeks to limit the use of facial recognition technology in airports. It includes dozens of specific provisions, and some exceptions, pertaining to technology, identification documents, biometrics, data retention, traveler consent, and public notifications at airports, among others. Folks don't want a national surveillance state, but that's exactly what the TSA's unchecked expansion of facial recognition technology is leading us to, Merkley said, upon introducing the bill. Americans have the right to opt out of using TSA's facial recognition at the airport, and we need to protect that right. At present, the Traveler Privacy Protection Act of 2025 has 5 co-sponsors: Senators John Kennedy, Republican of Louisiana; Ed Markey, Democrat of Massachusetts; Roger Marshall, R-CAN; Chris Van Hollen, Democrat of Maryland; and Steve Daines, Republican of Montana. The bill sits before the Senate Committee on Commerce, Science, and Transportation and has yet to receive a hearing. 5. Ensuring Airlines Resiliency to Reduce Delays and Cancellations Act. Introduced by Representative Rick Larsen, Democrat of Washington, in May, the bill calls on the Secretary of Transportation to require certain air carriers to develop and regularly update an operational resiliency strategy that is intended to prevent or limit the impact of future flight disruptions on passengers. For example, the bill calls for air carriers to describe how it will mitigate the potential impact of severe weather and other reasonably anticipated disruptive events. It also calls for details on staffing models, including the ability of such models to ensure the workforce is able to adequately respond to such events and reschedule passengers, flight crews, operations staff, and other appropriate personnel. At present, the bill has no co-sponsors. It sits before. 6. Resolution commemorating the centennial of Delta Airlines. Senator John Ossoff, Democrat of Georgia, and Representative Nikema Williams, Democrat of Georgia, introduced identical resolutions in March that commemorates the centennial of Delta Airlines and recognizes Delta Airlines for 100 years of connecting people to the world and to each other. The laudatory resolutions in part note that for the past 100 years, the mission of Delta Airlines to connect the world has included a commitment to being a strong partner in the communities where its people live, work, and serve. Co-sponsors in the House and Senate include Senators John Curtis, Mike Lee, both Republicans of Utah; Raphael Warnock, Democrat of Georgia; and 22 House members. Delta Airlines is headquartered in Atlanta, Georgia, and maintains a major hub in Salt Lake City, Utah. Since 2020, the airline has spent at least $4 million annually on federal-level lobbying efforts, according to federal records compiled by nonprofit research organization Open Secrets. To date, the bipartisan resolutions have not received a vote in either the House or Senate. 7. Hammer's Law Bill. Lawmakers in both the House and Senate have introduced companion legislation known as Hammer's Law that, if it becomes law, would allow a party in a civil lawsuit to recover non-pecuniary damages when someone dies in a cruise ship accident that occurred on the high seas more than 12 nautical miles from the U.S. shore. Non-pecuniary damages are defined as loss of care, comfort, and companionship. There are identical versions of this bill pending both in House and Senate committees, and neither have received committee hearings to date. Senator Deb Fischer has sponsored the Senate version, while Representative Don Bacon, both Republicans of Nebraska, is sponsoring the House version. Fischer first introduced the bill in 2019 and continued to introduce it in subsequent legislative sessions, when it failed to advance into law. The bill is named for Larry and Christy Hammer, retirees from Omaha, Nebraska, who died in an electrical fire in their cabin while on a river cruise in Peru. Also of note. On February 6, the Senate passed a resolution honoring the memory of the victims of the tragic mid-air collision between American Airlines Flight 5342 and United States Army Aviation, Brigade Priority Air Transport 25. The crash, which killed all people aboard the two aircraft, took place near Ronald Reagan Washington National Airport on January 29th. The Senate unanimously passed the symbolic measure.
That's it for today's Daily Departure. For more insights into the business of travel, follow us on your favorite podcast app. And if you like what you hear, leave us a rating or a review, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.